Deep within every dark corner lies a secret, and in every dark forest a monster. And it's your choice to stay in the light, or to let your curiosity lead you astray. On a dark woodland road, anything can be waiting for you between point A and point B, so it's safest just to keep going. The following is an audio adaptation of Jeremy Bove's Echo, read for you by the author. Be aware, this is a story that contains imagery of violence, some gore, and occasional use of profanity. This will be your only warning. Now, without further ado, settle into the safety of your truck's cabin and look out into the shadows beyond your headlights. Let me describe what may lie beyond them. I was born and raised in the wilds of Maine, and a while back I had a night I would never forget. At the time, I was 25, and 6 months earlier, my dad had gotten me a new truck, a shiny red Ford to match my hair. Now, I wish I could say that the reason I remembered that night so well was that I enjoyed driving through the lovely woods on a lovely summer night in a lovely new truck that my lovely father had gotten me 6 lovely months earlier. But of course, that's not the case. What really happened was not nearly as pleasant. So, if there's 4 things I love more than anything else in the world, it's those summer nights, my father, my mother, and my sister. And it's my sister that got me into this whole ordeal. This was a night I would never forget. The road was dark, and the light from the stars was mostly blocked out by the pine trees. I always loved it, whether I was driving or not, to see the contrast of the headlights in the dark road, the little yellow markers glowing. It feels very cozy to be sealed away from the darkness beyond and the safety of a vehicle such as this. It's like a suit of armor on wheels. As I went down the road through the forest, I decided eventually that I would turn on the radio. I flipped through a few channels and soon found my mom's. My mom works at the radio station outside of town, and she occasionally fills in for the DJ. I kept it on for a few songs. After the 4th song, there was a short moment of silence before, lo and behold, my mother's voice began to speak. "I hope everyone's having a good night," she said. "And if my baby's listening, I hope he knows I love him. And if my other baby's listening, you better be well under the speed limit, Agatha!" Haha. Anyway, next up is... I giggled quietly behind the dashboard. As my mother's voice once more faded back into the next song, I checked the GPS, and it said that Rory's motel was just 3 miles away. I picked up the pace a bit. Even though I had no reason to be, I was worried. I almost felt like closing the windows as if the darkness outside would drift into my truck's cabin and subsume me. I took a deep breath. Everything's going to be fine, I thought to myself. More and more, seemingly endless, those little yellow markers flew by. Just focus on the road. Everything's going to be fine. Yes, there I was, Rory's motel. I quickly pulled into the parking lot. There were only 3 cars and another truck there to begin with. Surrounded by the dark trees, the motel was like a beacon of light, a beacon of hope, nestled into a lightless blanket. I took another deep breath and got out of the truck. My sneakers clacking against the black pavement, I ran to the main building and opened the wooden door. But before I went in, I saw a guy standing near one of the cars. He was quite a big guy, almost as big as me. I'm 6'2", with a plaid shirt and black pants. He was staring at me, very weirdly. I decided that I wouldn't make eye contact. The bells attached to my door jingled as a friendly welcome. The interior of the motel building was dimly lit and filled with rustic memorabilia. At the desk sat a tired-looking man. I approached the desk and said, "Hi, I'm here to pick up Miss Echo Wolfsbane." The man glanced up at me from under his baseball cap. "Room 4, he mumbled. "Thanks," I replied. I left the building and went down past the room doors until I reached number 4. I knocked on the door and followed up with an, "Echo? It's me, Agatha." I heard a bit of thudding and thumping before the blinds next to the door parted and my little sister's face appeared. As soon as she noticed it was me, her eyes lit up. My sister quickly opened the door. 5 feet tall, wide-eyed, and aged 22 at the time, Echo Wolfsbane looked quite worse for wear. Her eyes looked tired, and her red hair was going all over the place. My sister wore a tattered gray tank top and a pair of bright green shorts. She didn't have any socks on, and her left leg had a pinkish-red bed burn on it. Despite her clearly out-of-it appearance, my sister threw her arms around me with surprising strength. "Agatha!" she chirped, happily. "How was the party?" I asked. "Oh, great," she said. "I watched this guy jump off the roof into the pool. Also, I beat a co-op run with the hostess's brother on COD in the basement." Now, this requires me to explain who Echo is. Echo is something of a complicated character. She's always been, understandably, extra afraid of stalkers, creeps, and generally things and people that lurk, so she often acts very timid and cautious. But that often gets in the way of the more interesting parts of her personality. Echo is actually quite the tomboy when she wants to be. If there's anything she isn't afraid of, it's dirt and mud. Not to mention she has an affinity for violent computer games, namely the previously mentioned COD, or Call of Duty, which I never liked. Although it is worth mentioning that I do enjoy playing The Hunt or Call of the Wild, however that's very different. Echo isn't just my sister either, she's my best friend. We do a lot of things together and rarely disagree on anything. But of course she was not in her element that night. "Please come in so I can close the door. There was this tall dude in a hoodie hanging around outside a few hours ago and acting weird. I don't know where he went, and he could be anywhere and I don't know where, and calm down, sis," I said, walking into the room and allowing Echo to close the door. "I'm here now." Echo sat down on the bed, which had an exceptionally messy blanket and sheets that were halfway off of it, and motioned me to sit next to her. I did. "Don't worry. I took a quick look while I was in the parking lot, and there was nobody there." I lied. I put my arm around my sister and pulled her closer. "And anyway, it's not like hoodies always mean bad things. Stefan always wears hoodies and jackets all the time, and what's scary about him?" Side note, Stefan Shelley is our second cousin who lives in Canada and often visits. There's nothing too remarkable about him. Echo leaned her little head onto my shoulder. "Anyway, I will beat up anyone who comes at you, okay? You're safe now." Being as large as I am, Echo always looked to me for protection, rightfully so. My sister hung her head in a relaxed way. "Also, Mom wanted me to ask you this. Did you have anything to drink at the party?" I inquired. "You mean like liquor?" Echo returned. "Yeah," I said. "I had half a glass of beer. Is that a problem?" I replied, "No, that's actually fine. But sis, you look hungover. You must have just partied really, really hard." "I guess so," said Echo, flatly. "I had a shit ton of fruit punch, though." Later on, we were driving to the campground in my truck. We decided that a few hours by the fire would be good for us before making the long drive home. After getting out of the truck in the dirt parking lot, I led Echo to the head of the short trail. The crickets were chirping, and the moon was full and perfectly round. It was a lovely night. But then, there he was again, the plaid shirt guy, staring at us next to his stupid gray minivan. I was starting to get suspicious. I didn't like the way he was staring at me, and I especially didn't like the way he was staring at my sister. Once again, I didn't make eye contact, and I didn't tell Echo. I simply ushered her down the trail and gave her a reassuring pat on the head. She loves it when I do that. As we walked down the trail, Echo asked me, "Sis, what's your biggest fear?" "Easy," I said. "Bears." "Alright," said Echo, "'cause I don't know what mine is." We walked down for a few more moments before Echo said, "But do you know what I'm not afraid of?" "What?" I responded. "The dark," Echo replied. "Me neither," said I. "I'm afraid of what's in the dark, like bears." "Me too," added Echo. We both laughed. We followed the signs until we could see the flames of the campfires dancing among the trees. What a nice sight. It wasn't a long trail, only about 200 feet. Soon we reached the campfires and took a set on a log together. There were a few other people, a skinny old guy, a tough-looking dude in a bike helmet, and a tall, muscular, middle-aged woman with a hot dog on a stick. For a while, we just watched the fire. I'm not a pyromaniac, don't get me wrong, but fire has always fascinated me to watch. Neither solid nor liquid nor gas, the flames are a thing all their own. Like a living creature, it eats, it breathes, it hunts. It can be your best friend or your ultimate destruction, just depending on how close you get. A fire is kind of like love. The stronger it is, the riskier it is. I watch the flames roll and curl and twist, sending blazing sparks up to the heavens. We owe a lot to it, and just as we owe a lot to the light, we owe a lot to the darkness as well. There's beauty in darkness, beauty in the night that the day simply doesn't have. And without the darkness, we wouldn't have the light. And where would we be then? I perked my head up and looked at Echo. "Echo, you'll never guess what I have in my backpack." Echo looked up at me, confused. I slowly unzipped my backpack and unsheathed the bag containing a box of graham crackers, a smaller bag of marshmallows, and a huge chocolate bar. Just like it did when I arrived at the motel room, Echo's face brightened as she realized what time it was. "I love you, Agatha," went Echo, literally licking her chops. We both got up, ran just past the edge of the darkness, and picked up sticks, which we brought back to the log. We stuck marshmallows onto the sticks, skillfully, and before we knew it, we were putting our s'mores together. Of course, after I finished my first one, I wanted some more, so I realigned my stick and made another one. Just before I was to put it in my mouth, though, I had a very mutualism-ish idea. I looked over at the old guy and held out the s'more. "Sir, you want some?" The man looked up and stared at me. I widened my eyes and smiled. "What a nice young lady," he said. I handed him the s'more. He wolfed it down, to my delight. I made another s'more for myself, of course. After a while, and about 4 s'mores later, I realized that I needed to pee. I looked at Echo. "Echo, I think Mother Nature's calling." Echo looked at me. "The bathrooms are a few yards down over there. Think you can wait here a few minutes?" I asked. Echo seemed to ponder this. "It shouldn't take too long," I added. "Sure, I'll be fine," said Echo. The bicycle helmet guy had left, but the tall woman and the old guy were still there, and they both seemed pretty trustworthy, so I felt safe leaving Echo there. I got up, put down my mighty s'mores stick, and made my way down the trail that led to the bathrooms. It was very dark. The trees were thick, and very soon the glow of the flames was lost. It wasn't a long trail either, but it felt long. However, I did eventually see the white glow of the broken-down lights in the wooden bathroom building. I embarked the lavatories and P.U. I wondered if the men's room was any better. I opened one of the stalls with a surprisingly heavy door and entered, covering my nose. Soon after I'd relieved myself, I went to the door to my stall. I opened it, or tried to open it. The lock was stuck, and the door wouldn't budge. I jiggled the lock, pushed the door, banged on it, and then attempted to full-on body slam it. My attempts lasted what might have been 8 minutes. I eventually started screaming, "Help! I'm stuck in the bathroom stall!" Nobody, whether it be an occupant of the ladies' room or the men's room, came to my rescue. Soon, I had the nerve to take my Swiss Army knife out from my pocket, and proceeded to chisel the lock unstuck. After what felt like an hour, the lock was loose enough for me to slide it open with some effort. I threw open the door, and I went to wash my hands quickly before I left the bathroom house and ran as fast as I could back down the trail. I'm not sure how long I was in there, but it must have been quite a while. But what I found, or rather didn't find, when I reached the campfires was made my heart stop. The log next to our campfire was empty. Echo wasn't there. "Echo!" I shouted. I immediately turned to the old guy. Excuse me? Did you see where—" He already knew what I was talking about, he said calmly. "She told me that she was going to find you at the bathrooms. She got worried when you didn't come back. Do you not know where she is?" I looked at the tall lady, who nodded her head to corroborate. "Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit," I gasped. I was breaking out into a cold sweat. I knew 2 things. Echo knew the exact direction I had gone in. If she had stayed on the trail, it would have been impossible for her not to run into me on the way there. And I knew that Echo would never have went off the trail without me. I could see her being courageous enough to go down the bathroom trail alone, but not to go off of it. Something was seriously wrong. I have to find her, I thought. And then my heart stopped again. I had a thought. A stupid thought. A paranoid thought. But I acted on it anyway. I thanked the 2 people and tore off down the trail back to the parking lot. It's insane how dumb this thought was. I still feel like such an idiot to this day. I cleared the trail in just 2 minutes, but it felt like longer. I was already terrified for my little sister. The poor thing was relying on me, and without even being sure that she was in any real danger, I felt like I had failed her. Once I reached the parking lot, I immediately looked for that damned gray minivan. And there it was! With its backlights glowing red, it was about to pull out. I sprinted over to the minivan before it could move, and then, like a complete jerk, tapped loudly on the window. Sure enough, inside was the plaid shirt guy, who rolled down the window with a bewildered look on his face. We stared at each other for a second. "Where is she? What did you do with her?" I snapped. I can't stress enough how much I feel like an asshole in retrospect. And then the last thing I could have expected happened. The creep burst into tears. "I'm sorry, ma'am, I'm sorry. Meemaw told me not to stare, but I keep doing it. I know it's weird, and I don't really mean any harm. I'm sorry for staring, but no, I would never. I ain't a kidnapper, ma'am, I swear it. You can look in my car. I never hurt a flea." I immediately felt remorse for my ridiculously rash accusation. "Sorry, dude," I said. The man suddenly straightened up. "The girl you were walking with? Is she missing?" This guy was straight to the point. "Yeah," I said. I don't know where she went. The not-so-kidnapper looked at me with a determined look on his face. I'll help you find her. Make it up to you. That would be nice, I said, uneasily. The guy pulled out a smartphone from his lap. I'll call the cops for you, and you go look for her, he said. And I'll open my trunk while I'm at it. I'm the only person in the car, ma'am. You can see for yourself that all I've got is dust bunnies and a snow scraper back there. The guy seemed to be telling the truth. I guess he was just a normal, harmless weirdo. That would be great, but I don't need to look in your trunk, thanks. I believe you. The man was already dialing. Poor bastard. He waved me off as he raised the phone into his ear, and with an I got this expression flashing on his face. Hello? 911? Yeah, I just met a lady at Mac and Sue's campground, and she thinks her sister's been kidnapped. She's going to look for her now. I was already off. You see, close siblings have a kind of connection that runs deeper than science can fully explain. Echo could have been anywhere, but somehow I had an intuition of where to look. But I wasn't going to go unarmed, and I wanted something a bit bigger than a Swiss Army knife. I ran to my truck, opened one of the back doors, and looked under the back seat. I removed the long black box from underneath. I slowly opened it. I would be willing to kill for any member of my family, Echo especially. I had 18 shells in the small bluish-gray pouch, and I was willing to use them all if I had to. After gently placing my hands upon it and raising it from the box, I cracked the shotgun open and inserted 2 bright red 3-inch long 12-gauge shells. I snapped it shut and whispered, I'm coming, sis. Within minutes, I was running down into the woods, no need for a trail. The shotgun's twin barrels shined in the dim moonlight which acted as my guide. That sixth sense was what led me. I knew she was out here somewhere, and whoever had her would have hell to pay. The light of the moon was chalk white, making the rocks and boulders to either side of me glow. The dark trees seemed to loom ominously over me, as if the night sky was literally holding them apart for me to pass between them, like they would otherwise bear down upon me. My fear was only for my sister and what could become of her. I had no fear otherwise, no thoughts for what might happen to me. Echo? Echo? I called. And soon, I got an answer. Agatha! Went my sister's voice from the darkness to my right. Agatha, I'm right here. Put the gun away, Agatha. I'm okay. But before I proceeded in the direction of Echo's voice, I had a strange realization. Echo's voice sounded off. It sounded just a bit too light-hearted. Echo, what happened? Where are you? I asked in the darkness. Oh, I just took a walk and got lost. Before I could process what she had said, a text came up on my phone. All of a sudden, that gut feeling came in again. I lowered the shotgun and took out my phone. The text was from Echo. In all capital letters, it read, Don't listen. I put away my phone and raised the gun once more. My sister's voice once more rang out from the trees. Agatha, what are you doing? Come here. Who are you? I said, brandishing my weapon. My sister's voice began to tremble as if it were about to cry. It's me. Why are you talking all mean like that? Who are you? I repeated. Agatha, please come here. Just come closer. That did it. I had no idea what was going on, but I could feel it deep in my soul. I ran to the left, following my gut, not my ears. That wasn't my sister. I just knew it. I didn't know how, but I knew that it just couldn't have been. I kept going, holding the gun in my hands. It was some kind of facade. It was like I could smell her. Echo was this way, not that way. I could see in the distance, through the trees, the ruins of a small wooden shed. It almost appeared like a painting in the dim moonlight. I ran into the shed, dropped the shotgun, and placed my hands upon the door. It was locked, but it wasn't a very good lock. In fact, it looked more weaker than the bathroom door lock. I slammed my fist against the lock and pulled and prodded it until it broke. I flung it open with all my might. It took my eyes a second or two to adjust to the light, but then I could see. Cowering, shaking in the corner, was, to my utmost relief, my sister. Echo! I shouted, on the verge of tears. Echo looked up with an elated look on her face. I went into the shed, crouched, and hugged her. Don't worry, I cooed. After letting go, I inspected my sister's arms and legs. And that's when I noticed the marks. Red, gruesome-looking claw marks riddled my sister's skin, bigger and wider than that of a dog or a cat. Echo, what happened? I asked, putting on a sympathetic tone. Echo didn't answer. She just stared at me. She raised her head and grabbed my hand, but didn't speak. Echo? I asked. Echo opened her mouth and pointed to it, moving her lips as if she was trying to talk but couldn't. Sis, is there something wrong with your voice? I asked. Echo nodded vigorously. Echo pulled out her phone and texted me. I pulled out my phone and looked at the screen. "We need to get out of here. I can't explain now," she had written. I grabbed my sister's hand, squeezed it affectionately, and then pulled her up. Apparently the claw wounds did hurt, but not enough to stop her from walking. "Can you hear me?" I asked. She nodded. "Good," I said. I had no idea what was going on, but I knew I had to act fast. I led Echo out of the shed and picked the shotgun up off the ground. Clouds were rolling in over the forest, and the moonlight was getting dimmer and dimmer. We ran in the direction I came from, but we didn't get far. The darkness made me lose my sense of direction, and soon we found ourselves in a dark clearing. Echo was staying behind me as I had wanted. "Let's catch our breath," I said. For a few moments we stood there, and then I heard something in the trees. Footsteps. Human-like footsteps. I aimed my shotgun around in the direction of the footsteps. Echo looked terrified out of her wits. The footsteps got louder and louder, until in the trees I saw something that made my heart skip a beat, made my stomach wobble and congeal like jello. Something that paralyzed me with fright. Something that was staring back. Something with two horrible glowing red eyes, round and pupilless. Something that was very, very tall. Echo was hiding behind me, shaking in her sneakers. From the darkness, it emerged. Bony, skeletal, and smelling like a corpse, the huge, furry creature strode into the clearing. It was nearly 10 feet tall, with a deer's skull for a face and a pair of wide, sharp antlers. From within its two bony eye sockets came a crimson glow, like nothing I'd ever seen before. Its emaciated, rotting body seemed to be a terrible phantasmagoria of flesh, fur, blood, and randomly protruding bone. It stood up, hunched, in a way that was uncannily human but also not human at all. It had huge, long claws in its bony hands. And, to my utmost horror, from its bony snout came a sound. The echoing, distorted sound of my sister's voice. An echo of Echo. "Agatha! I told you to come closer, Agatha! Why did you leave me behind?" said the creature. I couldn't believe my eyes. Standing before me was a creature of legend, a living fairy tale, a grim, dark fable on legs. One word went through my mind. Wendigo. And that's when I remembered. Lightning shot through my arms as I placed my finger on the trigger, and I pulled as hard as I could. A thunderous bang erupted throughout the clearing as the muzzle flash filled my eyes. The Wendigo staggered backward from the force of the blast, blood running down from 12 holes in its midsection. I fired again, this time sending the monster running off to the side, out of sight. It emerged again as I cracked the shotgun open and loaded in 2 more shells. "Echo, run!" I shouted. I looked back at my sister. She was holding her phone with the flashlight turned on. Echo shook her head and pointed at her phone. I understood. I wouldn't be able to aim in the dark. Echo knew that. Together, we got ready. 2 against 1. Echo took the light and directed it onto the Wendigo, which shook in anger as the beam hit it. I took aim and fired a 3rd blast, sending the beast once more running to another part of the clearing. It was so insanely fast. "Agatha! Agatha, stop!" whimpered the Wendigo, still using my sister's voice. Echo directed the beam on the Wendigo once more, allowing me to hit it with a 4th round of buckshot. This dance went on for several minutes as the Wendigo continuously tried and failed to get an angle on us which could charge and sink its claws into us. As each gunshot rang out, the Wendigo's hide fell apart more and more, making the creature angrier and angrier. Soon, the Wendigo could take it no longer. From its bony skull came a twisted, evil, distorted version of my sister's voice, wavering and changing in pitch every other syllable. "Agatha! Why didn't you listen, Agatha? Time to die, Agatha!" Just as I finished reloading 2 new shells, the Wendigo charged full speed. I raised the shotgun, and this time pressing the switch-like implement on the weapon's rear to the center, priming both barrels for a synchronized 2-in-1 firestorm. Just as the Wendigo was about to lunge, my shaking figure went down upon the trigger, and with a colossal shimmering flash, I released 2 full loads of lead straight into my target. As the pellets connected with its cranium, the Wendigo let out the worst sound I've ever heard in my life. A terrible hissing cry halfway between a human scream and an animalistic shriek. Its skeletal head literally exploded into 2 halves, one side of its skull remaining attached to the neck, the other flying off into the air, sending blood splattering onto my face, my sister's face, and the barrels of the gun. The Wendigo's lifeless, halfway decapitated body fell onto the ground in a gory, bloody mess, coloring the grass red around it. I lowered the shotgun. The 2 of us stood there, I put my arm around my sister and stroked her head, trying to calm her down. We stood there for about 10 minutes, just trying to get our nerves back, looking at this gross, stinking wreck of a monster. And then my sister started coughing uncontrollably. I slapped her on the back. Once she stopped coughing, Echo looked up at me, opened her mouth, and to our delight, spoke. I can talk again, she said. I smiled, but then I had to get down to business. Said I, first I need you to tell me what happened, and then we can discuss that. Of course, said Echo weakly. I went to look for you when you didn't come back from the bathroom. And then it just came out of the trees and grabbed me, and it dragged me over to that shed, and yeah. Do you have any idea what it was? I explained to Echo what a Wendigo was. In truth, I didn't believe my own eyes either. Wendigos are creatures of legend, creatures of a paranormal nature, post-human beings that can steal their victims' voices. But there it was. After I finished explaining, my sister asked, "Do you really think that thing was once human?" I responded with somewhat wisely, "I don't see any other place that evil like that could come from." We stood in silence for a few more moments. "You really did just save my life, Agatha," said Echo. "I couldn't have done it without you and your light," I said. "We did it together." "I love you," Echo whispered. "I love you too," I whispered back. "Just next time, Echo, make sure to hold on to your voice." Thank you for listening to this mostly unabridged production of Echo by Jeremy Bove. The intro music is Alfie's Takes Action by Robin Blend and Nick Nitro. The outro music is just me playing around on my keyboard, to be completely honest. I would like to request that this recording not be reproduced or rebroadcasted without my permission. Thank you and have a good night.